Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about what it really means to have confidence in your partnerships, because whether we're talking about business, personal, or professional relationships, confidence isn't some magic trait. It's earned, it's built over time, and more than that, it's a decision you make daily. You decide to show up fully, you decide to communicate openly, you decide to trust. But with your eyes open. Partnership confidence doesn't begin with the other person, it starts with you. It starts with your own clarity about who you are, what you bring to the table, and what standards you hold for collaboration. When you understand your value, you don't enter a partnership looking for someone to complete you. You enter it knowing that you are whole on your own, and now you're bringing that wholeness into something bigger. That's what creates power, and let's be honest, partnerships without trust are just liabilities. If you don't trust the person you're building with, you will waste more time double-checking, second-guessing, and overcompensating. That's not partnership, that's a broken system. Trust has to be developed intentionally. You build it by following through, by holding each other accountable, and by staying in alignment. Not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's hard. Alignment is everything. If your vision is not aligned with your partner's, you will constantly feel out of rhythm. One of you is going to push forward while the other pulls back. That kind of friction wears down even the strongest team. So check in, regularly, often. Are we still aiming for the same outcome? Are we still driving toward the same goal? You'd be shocked how many partnerships fall apart simply because no one stopped to realign. Let's also get real about communication. Confident partners communicate clearly. They're not passive-aggressive. They're not hoping the other person can read their mind. They speak up, they ask questions, they state their expectations, and they invite feedback, and they don't crumble when things get uncomfortable. Because guess what? It will. The question is not whether you'll face challenges. It's how strong you'll be when you do. And this brings me to something I talk about with my own team all the time. Stay in your lane and know your strengths. You don't have to do it all to prove your worth. A confident partner knows where they shine and where they need support. They don't compete inside the partnership. They complement. That's powerful. That's sustainable. Finally, confidence in a partnership means checking in. Not just with your partner, but with yourself. Are you fully committed? Are you being honest about what's working and what's not? Are you assuming things or clarifying them? Because I'll tell you right now, confusion kills confidence. Don't let the fear of confrontation become the death of communication. Say what needs to be said, and say it with love, with strength, and with purpose. So if you're sitting there wondering how to deepen the confidence in your partnerships, start by looking inward. Build the trust, get aligned, communicate like a pro, play to your strengths, and recommit every single day. That's how powerful partnerships are built, that's how big businesses grow, and that's how legacies are made. Trust is built, not assumed, in any partnership. Whether it's business, creative, or personal, there's a tendency to start with enthusiasm and energy. But often, people mistake that excitement for trust. They jump in because they feel good, because there's a connection, a shared vision, or maybe even just the thrill of doing something together. But here's the truth. Trust is not something you start with. It's something you earn. It's a product of consistency over time, not chemistry in a moment. When you assume trust instead of building it, you put your future at risk. You overlook red flags. You skip essential conversations. You avoid defining roles or responsibilities clearly, and that ambiguity always comes back to bite you. The moment challenges show up, and they will, the cracks begin to surface. Suddenly, you start questioning intentions, micromanaging details, and doubting your partner's reliability. Not because they did something wrong necessarily, but because you never built the solid foundation of trust in the first place. You just hoped it would be there. That's why trust must be deliberate. It's not built on vague gestures or assumptions. It's built on patterns of behavior. It's built when your partner says they'll deliver something by Thursday and it actually shows up on Thursday. It's built when you express a concern and they don't dismiss it, they address it. It's built in the way they listen, the way they follow through, the way they respect your time, your ideas, and your boundaries. Every single action, no matter how small, either adds to or takes away from the trust in your partnership. Now let's flip it. Trust isn't just something you're receiving, it's also something you're giving, and giving trust requires strength. It means being open, being honest, being willing to be vulnerable. Yes, even in business. Especially in business. Because when people are afraid to be real, they hide, they fake it. They nod in agreement but secretly disagree, and then the entire partnership becomes performative instead of powerful. You can't build anything lasting that way. So how do you become someone who both builds and deserves trust? Start with your own integrity. If you say you'll do something, follow through. Don't overpromise. Don't ghost your responsibilities. Show up prepared, show up on time, show up with clarity. People notice. Your consistency is your credibility, and credibility is the currency of trust. Another layer of trust comes from transparency. Are you sharing the whole picture or just the parts you think your partner wants to hear? Are you keeping them in the loop on important decisions? Are you communicating early when something's off, or are you waiting until it's too late to fix? Transparency doesn't mean you have to dump every worry or every detail on someone. It means you're not hiding things that affect them. When you're open, others feel safe, they feel included, they feel respected. And guess what? That builds trust. Conflict is also part of the trust building process. Many people think that avoiding conflict is a sign of a strong partnership. It's not. Avoiding conflict is a sign of fear. Facing conflict with honesty and empathy is a sign of confidence. Trust deepens when you can disagree and still respect each other, when you can push back and still move forward together, when you can challenge each other not to tear down, but to build up. That kind of partnership isn't just functional, it's unshakable, and here's the part no one likes to hear. Sometimes trust needs to be rebuilt. Maybe someone made a mistake, maybe you dropped the ball. Maybe there was miscommunication or misalignment. It happens, but pretending everything's fine or brushing it under the rug doesn't restore trust. It just adds resentment. Rebuilding trust takes acknowledgement. It takes ownership. It takes real conversations, and it takes time. But the good news is, when people witness your commitment to repair, your integrity actually increases. Building trust also means respecting boundaries. You cannot expect someone to trust you if you constantly overstep, override, or ignore the limits they've set. If someone tells you what they need in order to work well, listen. Don't try to change them. Don't try to control them. Listen. That respect becomes the groundwork for trust, because people need to feel safe in order to show up fully. In forming partnerships, trust is the invisible force that keeps everything moving. It's what allows you to make quick decisions, pivot fast, and stay focused on the goal instead of constantly guessing each other. When trust is strong, meetings are faster, conflict is shorter, productivity is higher. Everything flows. Why? Because you're not stuck managing emotions or questioning intentions. You're executing together. So if you're building a partnership right now, or if you're in one that's not performing at the level it should, ask yourself the real question: is the trust where it needs to be? Not the assumed trust, not the surface level comfort, the real trust, the kind that's been earned through consistency, clarity, and communication. If it's not there yet, don't panic, but don't pretend either. Roll up your sleeves, have the real conversations, show up differently, because that's where it starts. That's how trust is built, and once it's built, everything else becomes possible. Confidence in communication is one of the most underrated tools in a partnership, and it is often the dividing line between partnerships that thrive and those that fail. It's not just about speaking clearly. It's about being willing to say what needs to be said in a way that lands, resonates, and moves things forward. In a partnership, so much rides on communication, and yet, too often people stay quiet out of fear. Fear of rocking the boat, fear of being misunderstood, fear of rejection or disagreement. But here's the truth: staying silent doesn't prevent conflict, it creates it. When you don't voice your thoughts, your frustrations, your ideas, or your needs, you create space for assumptions. And assumptions are the enemy of alignment. In any powerful partnership, confidence in communication is a non-negotiable. It's what allows both parties to express concerns before they become resentments. It's what makes it possible to push each other to grow, to hold each other accountable, and to solve problems quickly instead of letting them fester. Confident communication is not aggressive. It's not about dominating the conversation or being the loudest voice in the room. It's about clarity. It's about standing in your truth and delivering it in a way that's direct but respectful, honest but thoughtful, firm but empathetic. When you communicate with confidence, you eliminate the passive-aggressive dynamics that can destroy even the most promising partnerships. You don't wait for someone to just get it or read your mind. You don't sugarcoat your feedback to the point where it loses meaning. You say what needs to be said, even if it's uncomfortable, because you value the relationship enough to be honest. That honesty becomes the foundation for growth. It tells your partner, I care enough to tell you the truth, and I trust you enough to hear it. But here's the thing about confident communication. It starts before the words even come out of your mouth. It starts with internal clarity. If you're unsure about what you want, what you need, or what you expect, your message will be messy. That's why part of building confidence in communication is doing the inner work. Get clear with yourself first. Ask, what am I really feeling? What outcome do I actually want from this conversation? What's the real issue beneath the surface? When you walk into a conversation with that clarity, your words carry weight. You don't ramble, you don't beat around the bush, you say what matters and people listen. Confidence in communication also means knowing when to listen, and I mean really listen, not just waiting for your turn to talk. When you listen actively, you pick up on things others miss, you hear the hesitation behind their words, you notice the unspoken fears or concerns, and when people feel heard, they soften. They stop being defensive. They start opening up. That's when real progress is made, not in the moments where you're preaching your point, but in the moments where you're fully present and connected. In a high, functioning partnership, both people know how to create space for each other's voice. That doesn't happen automatically. It's a skill, it's a practice, and it's a choice. You have to choose to value truth over comfort, progress over ego, resolution over being right. You have to be okay with disagreement. You have to accept that tension is a part of growth, not a sign of failure. When you develop confidence in communication, you stop fearing those tough moments. You start leaning into them. You start recognizing that every hard conversation is an opportunity to build something stronger. One of the biggest blocks to confident communication is the fear of judgment. You're worried that if you say the wrong thing, you'll be criticized or rejected. But here's what I want you to remember. You don't build credibility by staying quiet. You build it by speaking with purpose, and the more you practice, the easier it gets. Confidence is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop apologizing for your perspective. You start showing up fully and letting others do the same. And don't forget, tone matters, delivery matters. Your message is only as powerful as the way you deliver it. If you're sharp or dismissive, people will shut down. If you're vague or timid, people will tune out, but if you speak with calm, grounded confidence, you create a space where trust can grow. Your partner knows where you stand, and that clarity gives them permission to do the same. If you want a partnership that's resilient, productive, and aligned, you have to develop confidence in communication. It's the heartbeat of everything. It's how you avoid unnecessary drama. It's how you resolve conflict before it escalates. It's how you celebrate wins, navigate losses, and keep moving forward together. No one gets this perfect all the time, but the goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. Every time you choose clarity over comfort, every time you voice your truth instead of holding it in, you become a more powerful communicator. And the more powerful your communication, the stronger your partnership becomes. Consistency is the invisible thread that holds a strong partnership together. In the beginning, enthusiasm and energy might come easily, especially when the goals are fresh and the vision is exciting. But it's not the big moments of inspiration that sustain a powerful partnership. It's the daily commitment to show up, to do the work, to follow through, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it. This kind of consistency builds trust in a way that no grand gesture ever could. Your partner doesn't have to question your reliability, your work ethic, or your dedication. They know what to expect from you because you've demonstrated it over and over again. That kind of confidence, the belief that they'll be there no matter what, is one of the most valuable currencies in a hyper-forming partnership. When two people commit to showing up consistently, they create momentum that compounds over time. They develop systems, rhythms, and habits that move the vision forward even when circumstances shift. And consistency isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about being there on the good days and the bad days, and honoring the agreements you've made to each other. It's waking up and choosing the mission again, even when it's messy, even when you're tired, even when you could walk away. Because consistency says, I'm not just here when it's easy. I'm here because we said we'd do this, and I honor that. There's something powerful about being someone your partner can count on, without question, not just in words, but in actions. It's easy to talk about commitment. It's harder to live it out in the details. It's harder to stay late to solve a problem, to follow through on a deadline you wish you could push, to admit when you drop the ball and take responsibility. But these are the moments that define a partnership. These are the moments where trust is either built or broken, and consistency is what tips the scale in your favor, time and time again. People often think passion fuels success, but the truth is, passion fades. Discipline stays, and consistency is born out of discipline. It's the refusal to let your emotions dictate your effort. It's doing what needs to be done, even when you're over it, and this mindset doesn't just serve your partner, it serves you. It builds your character, it reinforces your values, it reminds you that you are capable of more than just occasional brilliance. You are capable of sustained excellence. One of the biggest mistakes people make in partnerships is relying too heavily on motivation. Motivation is fleeting, consistency is dependable. You won't always wake up excited to contribute. You won't always feel connected or inspired, but consistency gives you structure. It gives you something to lean on when everything else feels uncertain. It becomes your anchor, and in the context of a partnership, that anchor isn't just stabilizing for you. It stabilizes the entire relationship. When both partners commit to consistency, you create a culture of reliability. You normalize follow-through. You create expectations that aren't just spoken, they're proven. This is what builds momentum in a business, a creative collaboration, or any shared vision. When one partner starts to falter, the other's consistency pulls them forward. It creates accountability, not out of pressure, but out of respect. When you know someone else is depending on you, and they've proven time and again that they'll hold up their end, you rise to meet that standard. But consistency doesn't mean rigidity. It doesn't mean doing things the same way forever. It means showing up even when things change. It means adapting, pivoting, evolving, but not disappearing. It means being flexible in method, but firm in commitment. You may change your strategy, your timeline, or your process, but your presence doesn't waver. That kind of dependable flexibility is what allows partnerships to not only survive, but thrive in uncertain seasons. It's also important to recognize that consistency is a form of leadership. When you're consistent, you model integrity, you set the tone, you inspire your partner to bring the same level of presence and accountability. People follow consistency because it creates safety, it creates clarity, it eliminates the confusion that often sabotages great ideas and great teams. When roles are unclear or follow through is inconsistent, doubt creeps in. And where there's doubt, there's disconnection. But when consistency is the norm, communication flows better, collaboration becomes smoother, and confidence in the partnership skyrockets. So ask yourself, what am I doing to create consistency in this partnership? Am I delivering on my promises? Am I showing up with the same energy and focus on day 100 as I did on day 1? Am I someone who can be counted on even when things get hard, even when no one's watching? These questions matter because your answer shapes the foundation of trust your partnership stands on. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be dependable. You need to be steady. You need to keep showing up. And when you do, everything changes, momentum builds, results compound, trust deepens, and suddenly what felt impossible becomes inevitable, not because of one big move, but because of hundreds of consistent small ones. That's the power of consistency in a partnership. It's not flashy, it's not always exciting, but it's how real success is built day after day, choice after choice, showing up, staying present, staying committed. That's how you build something that lasts. That's how you win together. Partnership confidence thrives when trust becomes the backbone of every interaction. And trust isn't given, it's earned, cultivated, and reinforced over time through intentional action. At the center of every strong business partnership is the quiet agreement that each person will show up, not just with their strengths, but with integrity, consistency, and accountability. Trust doesn't grow through grand gestures. It grows in the in the follow, through on small commitments, in the calls returned on time, in the transparency during difficult conversations, and in the willingness to be vulnerable when challenges arise. Too often, people enter partnerships believing the strength of the idea will hold everything together, but it's not the idea. It's the people and the trust they build between them. You don't get confidence in your partner unless you've seen them operate under pressure and remain steady. That comes from reliability. It comes from knowing that if a crisis hits at 11 p.m., the other person will answer that phone and show up ready to solve, and you only know that if it's been tested. So building trust isn't passive. It's built through fire-tested moments where your values align, your efforts synchronize, and you prove you're there for each other no matter what. When I look at forming partnerships, one pattern emerges. Those who succeed long-term don't just trust each other's skills, they trust each other's decision making. That means you don't need to double-check everything. You're not second-guessing every choice, you're not micromanaging, and that only happens when trust is so firmly rooted that you know, even if a decision isn't exactly what you would have done, you believe in your partner's intent and you support the process. That is liberating. It creates space for each of you to operate in your zone of genius, to lead from your strengths and to feel respected, which only deepens the bond between you. Let's talk about the communication side of trust, because that is where most partnerships either rise or fall. Trust isn't just about believing someone won't let you down. It's about knowing they'll communicate openly, especially when it's hard. Are you creating a culture between the two of you where honesty is encouraged and feedback is welcomed? Or are you both avoiding the tough conversations in hopes the issue just resolves itself, because it won't? Silence creates distance, but confident partnerships thrive in clarity, even when clarity is uncomfortable. If something isn't working, it must be addressed early, not when it's already a pattern. Feedback should not be personal, it should be foundational. And when both parties know the intent is to protect the partnership, not attack the person, you start to build a feedback loop that fosters growth rather than resentment. There's also a balance here between professional trust and personal trust. While you may not share every detail of your personal life, confident partnerships do require a level of personal connection. You need to know what motivates your partner. You need to understand their why. What are they working for? Who are they doing this for? What does success look like to them? Because your vision may not be identical, but if you understand the heart behind their ambition, you can build trust on a deeper level, because it's rooted in mutual respect for the journey you're on. That's how you create loyalty, not just alignment. Now, let's not ignore the fact that trust gets shaken sometimes. People mess up, expectations aren't met, disagreements happen, but the real test of a partnership isn't whether you have problems, it's how you handle them. Are you willing to lean in when it's uncomfortable? Can you reset agreements? Can you own your mistakes without defensiveness? Can you forgive and move forward without holding grudges? All of that determines whether the trust you've built is surface, level, or built on solid rock. Because when trust is strong, it doesn't shatter under pressure, it stretches, adjusts, and bounces back stronger. You want a partnership where you don't just feel confident today, you want a partnership that can weather tomorrow. That means proactively reinforcing trust even when things are going well. Celebrate small wins. Check in often, not just about tasks, but about how you're both feeling. Reaffirm your commitment to each other and to the mission. Because trust is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. But if you ignore it, it weakens. Confidence comes when you know you've built something that doesn't need to be micromanaged to survive. It just works because the foundation is secure. And finally, trust is not something you just feel. It's something you build. It's a structure you reinforce every time you do what you say you'll do, every time you show up for each other. Every time you choose respect over ego, collaboration over competition, clarity over assumption, you don't have to wait for perfect alignment to trust someone. You build that alignment through the way you engage with them, through the values you share, and through the consistency of your actions. When trust is your baseline, confidence isn't a question, it's a certainty, and that certainty is what makes business partnerships unstoppable. Confidence in a partnership thrives when both individuals are equally invested in personal and professional growth. What we often forget is that partnerships are a mirror. They reflect not just the strengths of your partner, but your own mindset, your own habits, and your own commitment to improvement. You can't expect a partnership to evolve if you're standing still. You can't demand accountability from someone else when you haven't been holding yourself to a higher standard, in any relationship, especially in business. Your own growth sets the tone. If you show up every day trying to be a better communicator, a stronger leader, a more emotionally intelligent collaborator, you create space for your partner to do the same. That energy is contagious. That's how you create a culture of shared momentum. In partnerships, stagnation is a silent killer. You may not notice it at first, but the moment one person stops growing, the entire dynamic shifts. That's when resentment creeps in, that's when imbalances start to form, that's when one person begins to carry more weight, not because they want to, but because the other has stopped reaching, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow drift. One person misses a goal, another stops learning, one person keeps pushing forward while the other starts playing it safe. Suddenly, your aligned vision turns into individual agendas. Confidence erodes not because of a dramatic failure, but because one person outgrew the partnership and didn't say it out loud. That's why continual growth isn't a luxury in business relationships. It's the maintenance plan. You grow or you go stale. There is no in between. The strongest partnerships I've ever seen are the ones where both people take radical responsibility for their development. They don't wait to be coached. They seek out growth. They ask hard questions. They invest in courses, mentors, feedback, even therapy, because they understand that the quality of their thinking directly affects the health of the partnership. They realize that unresolved personal issues will always leak into professional relationships. You can't separate the two. If one partner has a scarcity mindset, the other one ends up constantly justifying expenses or struggling to innovate. If one partner avoids conflict, the other ends up carrying the emotional burden of every decision. That's why working on yourself is not selfish, it's strategic. The more self-aware you are, the easier it is to bring that strength into the partnership and help raise the entire standard. But here's the thing, growth doesn't always mean you're on the exact same path at the exact same time. It's about shared direction, not identical pace. One of you might be working on leadership skills, while the other is diving into technical mastery. That's okay. The important thing is that you both remain committed to movement, that you're both seeking to become more valuable, more efficient, more aware. That shared commitment is what creates confidence. Because when you see your partner evolving, when you witness them growing through challenges and not staying stuck, it makes you trust them more deeply. You know they're not going to crumble under pressure. You know they're resilient, and that gives you the confidence to lean on them when things get hard. It's also important to talk about the vulnerability required in a growing partnership. As you level up, there will be moments of imbalance. Moments where one of you is struggling more than the other. Confidence doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from being honest about where you are and trusting that your partner will support you, not judge you. That vulnerability is not weakness, it's glue. It brings you closer, it builds trust when you can admit, hey, I'm feeling stuck in this area, or I need support right now. You're creating a safe space for real partnership. That's how you build something that lasts, not through perfection, but through shared perseverance. Let's not forget that growth is also uncomfortable. It forces you to confront parts of yourself that you've ignored or avoided. And when you're in a partnership, those parts will get exposed, your insecurities, your triggers, your limiting beliefs, but instead of hiding them, what if you brought them into the light? What if you saw your partnership as the greatest opportunity to refine not just your business, but your character? Because that's what a great partnership does. It holds up a mirror and invites you to grow. Not out of shame, but out of potential. Not out of comparison, but out of possibility. The more you grow, the more confident you become, and the more confident you become, the more powerful your partnership gets. There's one more piece to this: celebration. When both partners are growing, you have to make space to acknowledge it. Celebrate the new skill, the brave decision, the tough conversation that was handled well. Because that reinforces the culture of growth. It reminds each other that the effort is seen, that the work is valued, and that progress is appreciated. Those moments of celebration build confidence, not just in the partnership, but in yourselves. They remind you why you're in this together. At the end of the day, confidence in a partnership isn't something you declare, it's something you build through continuous personal development, through shared evolution, through mutual encouragement and accountability. When both people are growing, trust deepens. When both people are expanding, communication improves. When both people are committed to becoming better humans, the business flourishes. Growth isn't optional, it's oxygen. And if you want a partnership that not only survives but thrives, you better be ready to grow constantly, unapologetically, and together.